A5 standing by. Red 5 standing by. A-Wing, A5. Stay on target. Almost there. Welcome to Trinity Radio. I'm Braxton Hunter, and over there is
Jonathan Pritchett.
And we are excited to be with you here today talking about something that unfortunately is not pleasant, and we're going to be talking about issues to do with abortion. And so if this is something that you don't think you can handle, or you have children around or whatever, be fair warned. This is your chance. Also, I want to say I'm sorry for those of you that are like regular viewers that I haven't uploaded any other videos this week.
It's just been, we're starting 30 minutes late. It's just been a busy week. It's a busy time of year for Trinity.
In the past
folks.
2 weeks, my only remaining grandparent, my grandmother, died. My wife has got some stuff that she had that I can't, actually I'm not supposed to talk about what's going on in my wife's life on this stream, but there's something there that is taking time away, family related stuff. So it's been a lot, but in short, I'll tell you what, I've got a video that's almost done that I've been working on, so hope maybe that'll come out tomorrow. But we are so glad you're here, and I want to say thank you so much to Jim Amberg.
Thank you.
Satanists need to live as long as possible so they have time. Have
Amen.
Amen. Okay. Now, we have multiple videos on this channel about the issue of abortion, and after we talk about what we're going to talk about today, we will get into Q&A. So if you have questions, you can even now just feel free to put question in all caps and ask your question. We'll try to get to them in just a few moments. But first, I want to just say that we have a lot of stuff already on abortion. I'm a big believer in Stephen Schwartz's SLED argument. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go check that out. Just type in Trinity Radio abortion and you'll get it. I always talk about the SLED argument, but I'm not going to today because really I want us to focus on something else. The point is, I think that whatever you want to say about this, the scientific question of whether you have human life at the moment of conception has been answered. Even Peter Singer agrees that this is a human life from the moment of conception. You've got male human biological material. You've got female human biological material. You've got a new arrangement of biological material. You've got new human life.
Yes, not human, so...
Right.
You know,
the science on this is, I mean, there it is.
Right. And in contrast to the Satanists' claim that they are all about bodily autonomy and the best scientific evidence. And so, well, no, that's false, because the best scientific evidence is that abortion is the destruction of a human life. Except for certain people, Jonathan, who will say, some outspoken atheist advocates, I could name one, talk about him a lot, and who actually say, because here's the move we want to make. We want to say, okay, so the science is there, but you could say, well, you know, cells from my body are human life and whatever, and we don't worry about that. Well, there's a philosophical question that actually gets to the center of this issue. Is it a person? At what point does this new human life become a person? Now, here's the problem for someone who is the problem for anyone arguing for abortion, in my opinion, is whether they're religious or not religious, is what you have now is you have a situation where you have to make a judgment call. If you're committed to doing abortion, you have to make a judgment call about at what point this new human life becomes a person. And no matter how you do that, no matter where you place that, you can say, well, it's when it has a certain level of cognitive ability. It's when it can feel pain. It's when its heart's beating. It's when whatever you want to say about that, it's going to be arbitrary. Not that it's not, maybe not entirely arbitrary because you're basing it on something, but what you're basing it on, you have no way of knowing that is what should qualify as personhood without you being the one who subjectively made that decision. And if you're wrong, then look what you've done. You've ended a human life that is a person. Yeah. Now, there are some, this is what I was going to say, who will say, yes, it's a new human life, and maybe it's even a person, but so what? The woman's got a right to choose, and it's like the violinist thing and all these other things. But we think on this show that abortion is the most wicked thing that we as a society have put our seal of approval on. And frankly, and I'm going to say this now so I have it out of the way, oftentimes there are secular people, atheists, who will challenge religious people with stuff they don't like, stuff that seems to them or seems to our culture now to be awful about our culture, perhaps our views on sexuality. Well, let me just say that there's what we're looking for is what's true, not which thing we like the best or which thing seems most civil. But if you want to stack up Christian teaching about human sexuality next to the slaughter of innocent children, I don't even think there's a contest. So just saying that. But anyway, back to the point. We know that now in Texas, there's obviously a lot to say about abortion. And there is one last hope. In fact, the Fortune article, I think actually that was the title of it. Yeah. Satanists may be the last hope for abortion, at least after 6 weeks, I guess, in Texas. Now, here's the thing about that, Jonathan, and I'll kick it over to you, is we're not talking about, we're talking about a group of people who claim to be religious. They now I think they got their religious status, right? So they are a religion according to the U.S. government. All right, so that's important to this. But what you need to know about them is this is the non-theistic form of Satanism.
Satan is metaphor.
Satan is, but they like the way Satan came off in John Milton stuff. They're like, we're all about that guy.
Yeah.
And so I say that to say, but well, yeah. So they are arguing. Well, Jonathan, do you want to break it down what they're arguing?
The argument that I saw was that they want to get the FDA or some organization to give them a religious exemption in the same manner that the Native Americans get an exemption to use peyote in their religious rituals.
Yeah, so we have this situation where Native Americans are allowed to use peyote, as they have for ages, as a part of a religious practice, is my understanding. Yeah. But
that's dumb.
And so they are now arguing on the back of that hey, that is a religious practice, and it's a Schedule I drug, and this is now happening, and it's because of the Religious Freedom Something Act. And they're saying now we can basically apply that to our situation, but to do that, it has to be a ritual. It has to be in some way religious, or a part of your religion. And so there are abortive rituals that they talk about. Yeah. And to my mind, this is let me tell you how bad it is. Yeah. Jonathan can attest to this. When I saw this news, I saw all the major news outlets, talking about this. If you go to Google and go to the news section and type in Satanism or the Church of Satan and abortion, you'll get all these news articles from reputable, to the degree that news outlets are reputable today, from reputable or at least name brand news outlets. But I still went all the way down the hall to Jonathan's office and said, would you research this for me and make sure I'm not losing my mind? Because there are a lot of really crazy things going on in the world today, and with YouTube and all these other things. And I don't know what's real and what's not. And I don't want to talk about it if it's not real, because this sounds as fake news. This sounds as crazy can get, in my opinion.
And it's to try to backdoor it. Well, number one, I think Native Americans should be offended that they would try to usurp that loophole, because the use of peyote in Native tribes and cultures centuries predates any law that forbid the substance. This abortion ritual was designed in September of 2020 as a loophole intended to circumvent laws that they don't like. So it's not like you have this massive historical precedent that
at this point, are we even going to talk about are we even going to go through the article? We provided the article. Yeah. And by the way, before you continue your incredible thought, because Jonathan does have some fantastic thoughts about this today. He's about to say all his thoughts are always fantastic, so I beat him to the punch. But
you know me so well, my friend.
But let me say, the article that I posted here is a Yahoo News article, right? Okay, that's not obviously like The Economist or something, or what New York Times or whatever you want to say. But it's the reason I chose that one. You can choose any one you want. Just go Google it. But the reason I chose that one is because it had the most clickable citations, for lack of a better term, clickable links to other articles on whatever they're claiming. So I found that one to be helpful in that way. So I linked it. John, so we're not going to go through that article, but it's there for your reading. We've told you the basic facts. Jonathan, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say this is an ad hoc ritual designed specifically to circumvent laws that they don't like, and then look for any sort of case that they can hitch their wagon to in order to get what they want to circumvent laws that they don't like.
Wait a minute. Whoa. Hold on a second. You're not suggesting that the Church of Satan would deceptively, I mean, father of lies, but forget that for a second, deceptively try to use a loophole. You don't think this is a part of their deeply held religious beliefs?
Not even a little bit, and they know it.
But that's against the rules.
And the courts know it. Now, like we mentioned before, they do have religious exemption status, but the Flying Spaghetti Monster, the Pastafarians were denied that specifically because it was obvious parody. It was not.
For those that don't know, atheists have, on the internet at least, I don't know where it originated, somebody does, have long used the Flying Spaghetti Monster, which is a fictitious entity, as a stand-in for a deity, and then parodied Christianity that way to make jokes, basically, or religion to make jokes.
And obviously you're going to have one or two people who claim that this is their sincerely held belief, you know, but the courts weren't having this. You're not a real religion, right? And this is not a real ritual that has any sort of historical precedent within the satanic religion or whatever. You know, this is to parody the laws. And so this should be thrown out it should be laughed out of court if any case was, you know, seriously brought before a judge. It should be tossed, because that sets a worse precedent than any sort of loophole that they can try to find in prior cases. Because what that precedent that says is you can invent a religion in recent times and then invent rituals to circumvent laws you don't like. So say, for example,
it creates a very real slippery slope,
right? Because I can decide, okay, I'm no longer going to belong to Christianity. I'm going to become Primianity, and it's exactly like Christianity, except Primianity. One of our rituals is speeding on highways, and I created the religion 10 minutes before the show started. I'm creating this ritual 5 minutes ago, so. Now,
what's your religion?
Primianity. It's just like Christianity, except we have.
I thought it was going to be Precedentarianism.
Okay, Precedentarian. That's a better name. I should go with that.
Yeah.
But but we have a ritual now, because 70 has been around for too long. I'm old enough to remember 55, became 65, became 70. Do you remember this?
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's always been 70.
70 what?
Miles per hour on the highway.
Oh yeah, the highway. That's your new rule. Yeah.
I mean, come on, I go back to Sammy Hagar. You know.
Yeah.
So I can't drive 70. That's our remix, right? So we want to
be allowed to drive 70.
Right. We have a song for this ritual and all this stuff, right? It's so let me speed. No one else can, but I need my religious. I mean, you can come up with all kinds of religious exemptions for laws that you don't like if they were to actually allow this. They open the floodgates on that. So whatever you make of the Texas law, this kind of approach to circumvent it is really, really dumb and could be potentially dangerous.
Well, yeah. And actually, your example is more like the abortion case than the peyote case,
right?
Because there's a potential for somebody else to be harmed in your case isn't even as bad as the abortion case. They should give that to you, because you might end up harming someone, but you might not. And I know you. I think you're a pretty good driver. You probably won't.
Yeah.
But I don't want you doing it. But I'm just saying, in terms of like the dangers here, abortion absolutely will kill someone if it's successful.
Right.
Of course, that they would say, well, that's begging the question. But I think
No, if you're going to claim scientific evidence and bodily autonomy, what about the body of the unborn?
Right.
You don't.
Yeah, what about the bodily autonomy? This is where it always ends up with people who are libertarians, right? Not libertarian in the philosophical sense, but political sense, is often that it's like it's just I don't know. I've lost my train of thought. I've completely lost my train of thought.
Talking about libertarians.
Yeah, is okay, on the abortion issue there's trouble because it's like, whose freedoms are we talking about here?
Which body?
Yeah.
The body of the unborn.
That's happened to me like twice lately. You know, the other time it happened, I was down there at the Capturing Christianity conference and I was doing a breakout. And someone asked me a question, so I answered the question, and then I didn't remember what I was talking about.
What happened to you in December of last year?
I turned a certain age.
Right. You turned 40. That's what happens. Yeah. Welcome to it, man.
My religion exempts me from paying taxes, Socialist Z says.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
Let's see. The flying spaghetti monster was created in Kansas specifically in response to the Kansas school board voting to allow the teaching of creationism in biology classes.
But see, they didn't even have to do that. I mean, you could at least, pull from. I mean, I don't know why they thought flying spaghetti monster. I mean, you already had a flying spaghetti. There's Cthulhu. Why not? Cthulhu's so much cooler than flying spaghetti monster. I don't get it.
Well, religious people and organizations
That's just bad branding. You had Cthulhu.
KCA Randy says religious people and organizations are afforded exceptions to laws all the time. Well, that that may be true, but are we asking to kill people? When we start asking to kill people, that's when, or when we start asking to, are you willing to go this far? There's a non-zero chance you're wrong about when personhood begins. If you're not willing to at least grant that, I don't believe you. Yeah, and not you, okay, KCA.
So Hobby Lobby.
Hold on, I'm on a roll here. Yeah. But not really. But KCA Randy, religious people and organizations are afforded exemptions. If you don't think that there's a non-zero chance you're wrong, then I don't believe you. You've got way too much certainty on this issue. And so if you don't know for sure, then you shouldn't ever be doing it. You might be killing a human being. When we as Christians, evangelical Christians, decide that we might start maybe killing people, then you definitely need to say something like we are now.
Yeah. Well, okay. Hobby Lobby gets a religious exemption so that they don't have to, provide certain healthcare options that allow for abortion or whatever. So
Double base, I will answer that question. We're answering questions.
That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is creating a ritual to get around a law that they don't like.
Yeah.
That's why there's no precedent with this ritual that has any. If you're trying to use the peyote example, right? If you're trying to use that, there's no parallel. It's not comparable because the use of peyote preceded any law that forbade it for consumption or whatever. So it's not the same thing. So religious exemptions that are given are for for things for religious convictions and practices that predate.
Yeah, this is ad hoc, like you say.
Hobby Lobby's anti-abortion stance predated Obamacare that was trying to force this on. Mm-hmm. And any whatever legislation was trying to say you have to provide this for your this thing for your employees. So it's not the same. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I'll answer that question, KCA, in a little bit. I'm happy to answer that question. Very happy. Looking forward to it. Okay. Now, so we're not going to go through the article, but understand that this would effectually make the Church of Satan a pharmacy with one drug.
Yeah.
And so they would be the ones they're asking for. They want to be the ones to distribute these abortifacient drugs to their parishioners, their congregation. But now, interesting to me, Jonathan, this is interesting to me, is the reaction from, I'd like to know what the reaction of the atheists in the group is to this. Not to abortion, but to this tactic, because that's what it is. It's obviously. I mean, is anyone taking this seriously, that this is their deeply held religious belief? They have as one of their tenets that your body is sovereign or whatever, like you're not supposed to let anybody. So they're saying that, and I don't doubt that they really believe that. But as a part of this religious Satanism and all that organization, this is obviously an attempt to circumvent this for reasons. And so I'm wondering, what do atheists think about that tactic? Because here's the thing. It means that you kind of have to endorse. We're talking about a religion right here. And remember, Christopher Hitchens said, God is not great and religion poisons everything. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, yeah, some religions poison a lot of things. And this is a religion. So this is the point I want to make a lot of times, Jonathan, and I've been making it lately, is that I think that many of the new atheist types are more concerned about politics and so on social issues particularly than they are about, and I'm putting abortion in that category, even though I don't think it's a political issue. It's an issue that's been politicized, but it's a moral issue. But I did it again. I did it again. Where was I going with that?
I don't know. I think Mr. Green was asking about the celestial teapot, though. So I
I put it up there for a minute. I'm really worried about myself. Why is this happening to me?
Because you're over 40. Well, that's what just happens.
Oh, so the atheists' reaction to this. I want to know whether you agree with this, because it seems to me it's mostly political. And what I see online is people who are pagan, who literally believe in like polytheism and stuff. Mm-hmm. The atheists don't really go after them or antagonize them too much. The progressive Christians who agree with the atheists on a lot of the political stuff, I don't really hear them going after them.
No, they make fun of them, but that's about it.
Maybe, but with this, I looked on one atheist show just before I came on here. There's like 4 guests on it, and they were talking about this issue. One of the only groups talking about it. And it didn't seem like they were seemed supportive. In fact, their only problem really that I heard mentioned was that there were too many white people in the Church of Satan, and that we need more diversity. And if they're going to rely on Native Americans and peyote and all that, they should have consulted a Native American, because that goes along with the whole critical race theory and that whole thing. If you're going to talk about the experiences of Native people, I guess even legally or religiously, or both, you have to have a Native American person involved in that process, because you can't understand, because it doesn't matter. Well, I'm not going to go down that road. That's more your road than it is mine, the critical race theory road. But anyway, I want to know what you atheists think about this tactic. Would you please tell me?
Yeah, well, I think that this thing is kind of dumb. I mean, you just invent because Christians could do that now. Christians could start inventing all sorts of things to circumvent laws that they don't like. And Gregory, atheists would throw a fit if Christians started doing that.
Gregory Fisher says, get used to the forgetting thing. It's all downhill from there. Okay. All right. But I want to know about that. So I'll start taking questions now. Jonathan, do you have anything else?
This is just stupid.
Okay.
The Church of Satan's stupid.
Jed Phillips says, what are your thoughts on this? One has not only a legal but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. It's hard to talk about that. It's Martin Luther King, he says. It's hard to talk about it without a particular example. So let's go with this particular example. When it comes to abortion, there are people out there who would say something like this. Okay, you believe that abortion is murder, right? I do. Okay. All right. So if you saw someone on the side of the road about to do that to another human being, wouldn't you feel compelled, a child, let's say, wouldn't you feel compelled to jump out of the car and try to physically stop it?
No.
So then the claim is, well, then why is that not the case with why do you have such a problem with people who commit horrible acts related to abortion clinics? Well, the reason is because this is a massive worldwide problem, definitely a national problem. It's not going to be resolved. It's only going to be hurt by an action like that. And so the best way, it seems to me, is to engage in this by arguing for it, trying to show good reason. And I'm happy to see that what we see happening in Texas.
Yeah. By
Texas, not by the Church of Satan. So I think in this case, it's unjust. these are unjust deaths of the unborn. And even when it's legal, I think it's wrong. And I think that the way one stays away from that whole thing is don't get an abortion and speak out against it.
Okay. Honestly, Atheist did have a question about what about religious exemptions about masks and...
We'll get there.
Okay.
But I've got these saved in order. All right. Double bass. Are you both against the death penalty?
I'm not.
I have a really unpopular opinion here among the people in my circles, but I'm opposed to the death penalty. Now, that said, I do think that, okay, so if we're talking about justice, what resonates with us intuitively and is also biblical? The most perfect standard of justice, we're not saying, here's the most perfect standard of justice, is a tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye. That is you can't imagine, that is a one-to-one correspondence of justice. Now, we're not saying that we should do that, but I'm saying that I think it is unjust then to allow a man from a certain perspective, it's unjust for the family of the murdered party to now have to financially support the living of the person who murdered their loved one for the rest of his life, perhaps,
right,
or her life.
Taxpayer.
Right. I get that there's an injustice there. The problem I have with it is there's actually an interesting story about this. I was in seminary and I was typing out a proposal to write a paper to my professor. And I meant to say that I was going to argue against or argue in favor of the death penalty. And I accidentally said that I was going to argue against it, but he accepted it. And then I had to write the alternative. And I actually convinced myself, partly because of the way we do it. The way we do it is actually not the most humane way of doing it, in my opinion, and may violate, in my opinion, from best I can tell, and I'm not a medical professional, but medical experimentation principles. But all that said, because of that, because you may have a guy in a moment of passion kill his wife's lover in his own bed. He comes in and sees them there, and he gets a more severe penalty than someone who was involved in September 11th. I mean, come on. So until there's more of a reasonable equality of what's going on there, then I'm against it. I'm against it. So I don't know that I'm against it for the reasons that you think, because there's a whole lot of difference between a moral agent who is an adult who commits an atrocity and makes that decision exercising free will versus an unborn child, right? Yeah. So that's my answer.
You're not against it necessarily in principle so much as in practice.
Right.
I get that.
Okay. Casey Randy says, how are you in a better position than the pregnant person to decide if she wants to or is capable of being a parent?
That's irrelevant to the issue of abortion. It's completely irrelevant.
Whether she decides she wants to kill a person, that's what we're talking about here.
Right.
I get that you, Randy, don't see this that way. But see it from our perspective, which of course is the correct perspective. I'm going to say it. I think that to the people who are in the know, I'm not going to say it. Yeah. I think they know what they're doing to an unborn child.
Yeah.
And I think they know that the few inches of the cervix or the birth canal does not convey personhood. I think they know all that. I think they know that at certain levels of development, we can point to things that seem to indicate that they're not so different from us. And of course, I think the sled argument goes all the way.
Well, they have no memories of being in the womb.
But if you understand,
that's what they say. Well, I mean,
I don't have any memory. That's their thing.
They don't have any memory of being in the womb. So I mean, how can you say it's part of their, personhood or whatever? Braxton doesn't have memory of what he was talking about 2 minutes ago. I mean, come on.
But I'm still the same person,
right? You keep that goes back to show all these lines are arbitrary. So the point is this: the issue is not who cares. How do you know that you're in a better position to be? That's irrelevant. The principle is it moral to kill human beings that are innocent of everything? Is it moral to kill innocent human beings? No or yes. If you think it's moral to kill innocent human beings, then I think that you're a pretty disturbed person yourself and have problems. But if no, then abortion falls in the category of killing, murdering innocent human beings, and that's morally objectionable.
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever context you want to dress it up in, it's just on principle, it's wrong and immoral, and so we shouldn't be killing innocent human beings. That's how I know that I'm in a position to stay it, because I can go to the principle of the issue, not the circumstances and everything else. At principle, it is wrong morally to kill innocent human beings, and abortion kills innocent human beings.
So this is really simple, Randy, and I'm glad you're asking this question.
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel any hostility. I'm glad this is being discussed.
Yeah.
When I saw your questions, I was glad for them.
Yes.
Here's how you see this from the pro-life angle. If you understand that at least in 99.9999% of cases, it's the unjust killing of a human being, a person. If you understand that, then let's read your question this way. How are you in a better position than the pregnant person to decide if she wants to, I'm going to get to capable in a minute, wants to be a parent? Whether she wants to be a parent, whether it's yes or no, says nothing about whether it's okay for her to kill a human being.
Right.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
What if she's not capable of being a parent? Whether she's capable of being a parent does not mean she is okay to kill a person. That's just not how that works.
Right.
With anything else. The only difference here is because we're thinking in this case, maybe it's not a person. But as I've already argued, there are lots of reasons to think that it is a person. The only differences between the unborn and the born that are meaningful are size, level of development, environment, degree of dependency. These are the only real reasons. And we don't bigotedly discriminate against people who are born based on differences we have with their size, level of development, environment, where they live, and their degree of dependency on others. We don't do that. Why? Because that's a person. And so what's really egregious, this was a shot in the arm, was when Louis C.K., of all people, he's had trouble, right? But before he had the trouble, he had a Netflix thing where he started the show saying, let's just be honest that this is murdering a baby. This is killing a baby. But then let's just go ahead and be okay with it, basically is what he argued. And I believe he meant it. I believe he meant there's really not a way to get around this with straight face.
You can't lipstick this pig. It's murder, right? We know, everyone knows it's murder. You know it's murder. It's the way it is. So yeah, it's just one of the, see, that's why people, I back when I used to actually argue, I don't argue with people on the internet anymore. It's a waste of time. But back when I used to argue with people about stuff like abortion, well, you're just pro-birth. You're not even pro-life, and or you're just anti-abortion. Right? Okay, I'm pro-birth. Okay, if that's right. So what? I don't care if I'm not, because whatever. If you want to call me pro-birth and that's it, and let me say this plainly. It's about principles. Okay. I don't care about how much appeals to pity fallacies you can pile onto the conversation. Listen to me very carefully, okay? No amount of appeals to pity. That let's say, for example, that I don't care what happens to that child.
Not true.
This is not true.
But,
I said let's say.
Yeah, I'm highlighting that.
Yeah, this is not the case at all. But for the sake of argument, even if I did not care whatever happened to the child the second it exited the mother, that has no relevance whatsoever to the principle of whether it is morally acceptable to murder innocent human beings or not. So even if I don't care what happens to the baby the second it is born and the rest of its life, irrelevant to the discussion, totally irrelevant. So, okay, you're just pro-birth. Well, I mean, that's not true, but if you want to call me that, fine. I am that too. Because I think, as a matter of principle, irrelevant to whatever else you want to say, what about the baby after it's born and all that? What if I didn't care less at all? It's still morally wrong, in my view, to chop up babies in their mother's wombs, to dismember them and murder them. Torturing and murdering innocent life is morally reprehensible. Period. Doesn't matter how much or how little I help babies after they're born. So that's irrelevant to the conversation. And I know that's harsh. That sounds so harsh. But people have to look at the principles that you're discussing, not the appeals to pity and all the other window dressing that people want to dress up these conversations with. So there you go.
Yeah, well, all right, let's look at a couple of questions here. Honestly, Atheist says, would you agree that most people rejecting mask or vaccine mandates for quote-unquote religious reasons are on similarly perilous grounds? Yes, I think to the degree to which they want to argue that they shouldn't have to do that, they should argue that based on rights or something else, or just wear a mask, but I don't think there's a religious exemption for that, do you? Or should be?
The vaccine thing.
Oh, we're talking, but yeah, he's asking specifically about
the vaccine
mask.
thing.
Vaccine mandates.
Yeah.
That's a bigger deal. That's a bigger deal. Injecting something into my. See, on the one hand, we're talking about, are you allowed to have a drug that will kill a child inside of you?
Yeah.
Here we're asking, should you be forced legally to be injected with a drug that's obviously very controversial right now.
Yeah, and about the abortion lines and all of that stuff that was used.
Yeah, and there's abortifacients.
And all,
I mean, there's aborted cell lines from an aborted fetus that are used in the development.
So I mean that.
We did a debate
and
on that.
again, people's objections to abortion, which you and I don't even often make.
I still don't agree. Vaccine mandates. Here's the thing. That is an issue of rights. I think that whether you should whether the American government can should be allowed to require people.
They already require a lot of vaccine. You can't go to a public school and
but that whole discussion should be had, I think, on those grounds.
Yeah.
I can't see an obvious place
for religious
whether this is a religious issue. I can't. Now, if you're talking about closing church down, we might have a different conversation.
Yeah.
But let's move along here. I want to see. Did you have something to say, Pritchett?
I still keep my people are gonna think I'm a traitor in certain circles of our audience. I still carry my One Life mask in my back pocket, just in case I walk into a place that's. And there's a couple places here in Evansville that still require it. Most of my life I get on without wearing a mask, but if a business wants me to wear a mask, I don't throw a fit or say, I'm not going to go in there or whatever. I mean, I still carry the mask. And we don't even have pandemic culture here in Evansville where most people are still masked up or whatever. There's a couple of chain businesses that have something that or my wife wants from the store. Okay, whatever.
But,
I mean,
but here's he asked a question next that raises actually an interesting.
But I don't wear a mask 99% of the time. I don't. But I carry it around just in case it makes someone happy in the store.
The tenet around the sovereignty of the human body in Satanism goes back to its founding and predates the Texas law by many, many years. So I would reject the premise that this is suddenly
not the ritual.
Yeah, not the rich. And look, and see, you're talking about an ambiguous bodily autonomy belief.
Yeah.
And now, just so people know, the Church of Satan started in 1966. But the Satanic Temple, which is the ones bringing this, was in 2012. So yeah, it was several years ago. But we're talking about the ritual. I don't know when the ritual began. And
September of 2020.
Okay, well then in that case, it still predates that law.
But the reason why they invented those rituals was to circumvent other laws in other states.
Because there was something going on in other states, wasn't there? Yeah.
And so this
is like an ongoing thing for them. They have a timeline on their website. Not that I encourage you to go to their disgusting website. I don't have a problem saying it's disgusting.
So like I said, but what I'm talking about is they created that ritual, not just with Texas, but they created the ritual itself to circumvent abortion laws, which is not comparable to the fact that Native Americans and other tribes, for ages have used peyote.
But here's the question I have. Would the Church of Satan or the Satanic Temple, would they, because of this bodily autonomy sovereignty thing, would they say, yeah, you shouldn't really get a vaccine if you don't want to?
That's an interesting
an interesting question, right?
And why not raise the same stink about that?
Right.
Why is it arbitrary in what they're making hay about?
Because their political opinion is more in line with people.
Right. So
the Satanic Temple is more in line with leftist politics.
Right. Else. So that's completely arbitrary. So
Look. I think the COVID thing, people have gone crazy politically about this. Wear masks, do the thing. People are going to get mad at me for saying that, but.
Well, like I said, we don't have pandemic culture here. Almost everywhere I've ever been for the past year, I have not worn a mask. But there are a couple of places that do still require it. And it's been in my back pocket for so long, it's just part of, I grab it every day. and throw it in my pocket in case I end up going to one of these places around here that whatever. If your crazy coffee shop across the street, say, hey, let's go get coffee. If they required it, they're the kind of place that would require a mask, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they do or not, but I mean, I just still keep it around. Maybe because I forget to, just have it. But
now, you want a real example of what this looks like to us, Randy, if you're still here?
Yeah.
Utopia Buster's got one. I guess we should just let Aztec descendants rip the heart out of people, too. Now, I don't know anything about Aztec descendants. I don't know what they believe. This is not any kind of indictment on them. But what I'm saying, if you had a group...
Okay.
Go ahead.
The sun god, Huitzilopochtli is...
I'm impressed.
Okay.
I don't know if you're right.
Yeah, so you would sacrifice, on the altar a human being to the sun god. So that's predates, U.S. laws. So.
But the point here is, there is a pre-existing law there that is religious in nature that also involves the killing of a human being.
Right. But you shouldn't do that because that interferes with the other human being's rights.
Right.
And that goes back to, in my view, you're murdering a baby via abortion is interfering with that human. And I think Huckabee was it Mike Huckabee? I think someone was arguing that constitutionally their rights are not the rights of the unborn are not protected because of abortion law, and I think he's right about that.
Trinity Radio, is this really an ad hoc tactic? When I heard about this, and this is a different perspective coming, I thought they literally did this as an unborn child sacrifice. Doesn't seem a far-fetched ritual to me. Satan would love it. Well, yes, Satan would love it, but these particular atheists don't believe in Satan. And of course, that's one of the things, right? Is that a C.S. Lewis quote that Satan's best trick is convincing people he doesn't exist or something?
No, that's from The Usual Suspects. That's Kaiser Soze.
Are you sure that's not C.S. Lewis?
Yeah, that's Kaiser Soze. What man?
Well, I think
movie nerd cred is dropping.
I think he said something similar.
Your movie cred is the greatest trick the pool is convincing everybody. That's Kaiser Soze, man.
So I don't know. I think it is a sacrifice, whether they realize it or not. It's not really a sacrifice though. They're not losing anything. As far as they're concerned. $9.99 from Derek Baylor. Thank you.
Baylor, man.
Your free advertisement. Everyone needs to buy and read Letters from Ignorantia. I can't say the name of my own book. What's wrong with me today? Letters from Ignorantia, fantastic book. Also, I ran 2 miles at lunch because Prime can't tell me what to can't tell me what to do.
Good. People shouldn't run. Him and Aaron Brown, man, they're just runners. It's so bad for your knees, so bad for your joints.
Yeah.
Sprints, not running. No, I don't know. At your age, my friend.
You notice how many people when this issue comes up, their whole game is not to address what you're saying, but is to try and say, oh, yeah, well then, but do you believe in this? Because this also is
the what about?
Yeah, what about this? What about that? What about that? Rather than addressing what we're actually saying. For instance, I'm just going to answer. Randy says again, are you in favor of birth control and sex education? Provided it's the right kind of birth control and the right kind of sex education.
Like as far as
if it's the kind of birth control that allows for conception to happen, and then it flushes basically an egg that is attached to the wall. That whole thing, I think that's too. We don't know. I mean, I think that is too much of a risk because again, you're deciding when and where.
Well, I mean, like the pill.
Some
women use that to regulate their cycle.
I know. I don't know the science of this, so I'm being cautious with it. But I know this much: there are some of these drugs.
Like you're talking about, like the morning after pill stuff, right?
Not just that. There are some things that are called contraception that terminate a pregnancy. Not in the definition of some people, but if you believe in the moment of conception. So I can't endorse those, but the ones that don't allow for that. That's fine. It's not that we're saying, and someone asked me this directly, it's not that we're saying that there's something immoral about not making as many people as you can make. It's that there's something immoral about a person that already exists being killed by a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing.
What about sex education?
Yeah, it's like, well, if it's done right.
What does done right mean?
Not the kind of sex education that talks about worldview type issues like what gender you are, what sort of are you gay or straight, all that kind of stuff, that sort of thing. No, just an explanation of how this happens and an explanation of the
So,
risks.
are you in favor
and an
of them
explanation
teaching
of the-
basic biology?
Yes, but I'm also in favor of them teaching what can be done, what you can do to be safe. Of course, the best thing for that obviously is abstinence, regardless of what anybody says. It has a 100% success rate. And what was the other question?
Well, that was the question.
But primarily, honestly, what I want to say is if we had the proper respect and appreciation for the family unit, and if people would cooperate and do what they ought to do, parents ought to teach this stuff to their kids, and the school should stay out of it. Unfortunately, there are some parents who are not capable of this, willing to do this, and it is important subject matter. The problem I have is how it's done, So, at public school, they'll still allow for, because they did it, my daughter, a couple of years ago, that if you want to have an alternative option, then you can skip that class and you can go to a Paris school, I guess, organization that is a church that offers, they have a guy come out and they give him a room. And if you want to voluntarily go have that sex education, you can, I think is the way it was. But the issue is I don't want all the worldview pork put into it. I want, here's how this works. I mean, really what I want is look how beautifully God designed all this, but I'm not going to try and force that. I want, here's how this works. Here are the available ways of staying safe. The best thing is abstinence. I still think they should teach that.
Well, I think that they do teach. I mean, it's not like,
I'm just saying I still think they should.
So I don't know.
But again, that's more whataboutism, right?
Right.
Let's see. What else do we have here? Any other questions?
Or did we just light everyone up in the chat? Now they're all having a field day, arguing back and forth with one another. But I don't know. These Primianity or Presbyterianism.
I'm gonna say something that is so cliche that I don't, and this may be the last one from Randy, because he is just doing whataboutism and he's giving platitudes. I'm sorry, Randy, that's what's happening. We're trying to actually engage and give reasons why we feel the way we do, and we're not hearing a response. We're just hearing whataboutism. And so, but he says, if you don't like a woman having the right to choose, you should be for birth control. All right, here's where it's going to sound cliche, but I'm all for a woman choosing not to have unprotected sex and remaining abstinent until she's married. Same with men, just in case anybody wants to know. I am all for a woman who engages in sexual activity to make the right choice about using whatever she had, contraceptions that are okay. I'm all for her making a choice about keeping this child or finding another option that also involves birth, right? Like adoption. I think women should have all kinds of choices with this.
Yeah. So
just not the choice to murder a person.
Yeah.
Or allow a doctor to murder a person.
I don't. If you're, what did he say? If you're against a woman's right to murder babies, you should be for birth control.
If you're against a woman's right to choose, is what he says.
But what he's saying is,
if you're against killing babies,
I mean that's what that. We don't use code language here. We translate the code language. The only thing I would say is that's kind of a non sequitur. I mean, I know Catholics who oppose birth control, right, and they're also pro-life, and I don't make those arguments, but they make those arguments. So I don't think it follows that if you're against chopping up babies in their mother's wombs and sucking them out through a vacuum, that you should be also for birth control. Because I know some Catholics who would disagree with that, and they make their arguments, and you can go research that. But they've made those arguments for decades now, so they're against abortion and birth control. I don't know that actually follows.
Well, let's do
Seems
one
like a
more
non
from
sequitur.
Randy, because this is actually flushing out all of the arguments that people typically give online. So you get to have bodily autonomy as a man, but a woman can't. Actually, what this is saying is you don't have
Men
to
don't get to kill babies. Women should. Let's just turn that around.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
I was going to say, men are not tempted to kill children.
No.
So women should be allowed to, I guess.
Right.
What's the syllogism? Right there, you know?
Yeah. It's just this. Come on, man.
Yeah, Jed Phillips has it right. Vaccine mandate is freedom issue. Okay, this is a fair question. What do you think are the motivations of the doctors and other professionals who are in the know around the destruction of human lives to keep performing abortions? Cognitive dissonance is a real possibility that is motivated by, hey, this is my job. This is what the culture of my job is allowing for. But you certainly do have medical professionals who say, hey, no way.
Yeah. And moral indifference.
And maybe they've convinced themselves, but they are in the know about what is happening.
Yeah, it's just an immoral indifference to the fact, yeah, I'm killing people, so what?
Or and they tell themselves exactly what the culture is telling everyone about this. And they just kind of accept it.
No,
I'm speculating here.
No, I'm killing a human being and I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the number one.
Amy's got it right. Yeah. Why is it difficult to understand that killing children is wrong?
Exactly. Thank you. It's not hard.
You know, it's like that thing of this whole bodily autonomy thing. It's like that thing that I don't know where he quoted that whole thing of your right to throw a punch stops at the end of my nose, right? Because I've got bodily autonomy. You can do whatever you want. You can even throw punches, but your right to throw a punch stops at the end of my nose, right? Okay, well, here's the thing about it.
Do you trust me to pull my punch at the exact time, though?
I don't want to be put in a position where I have to trust you.
Let's try that on camera.
No.
let's
yeah, so everyone sees you accidentally punch me out on camera. But the thing about it is,
some skill.
once you engage in a practice that can result in you getting pregnant and having a different body inside of your body, that's where your bodily autonomy ends at that child.
Right.
Basically.
Because there's another body involved now.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just a feature of biology that men can't kill their unborn children because of how nature works. But it's not. Look, this is not a slight against women at all. Saying women, unless you think, okay, women should have a right that men don't have, which is to slaughter unborn children.
Here we go.
But
my biggest beef is that you don't seem to care to actually take measures that will significantly reduce abortions in the first. You mean like what happened in Texas?
Are you talking about the proverbial you, or the proverbial you, or the?
He's talking about us, I think.
Okay.
You're not really trying to stop it. You just want abortions outlawed. We did actually. Whatever's happening seems to be working in some cases, like Texas. But let me rephrase this for you. This is why one of the reasons why I'm so convinced on this issue. And these are, I'm not trying to be offensive to Lehman here or Randy, but these are obviously not maybe some of the most sophisticated responses, but they are responses that
are typical,
everyday people have. These are typical responses. And I'm more sure that I'm right when I hear the responses. So let me rephrase this for you. My biggest beef is that you don't seem to care to actually take measures that will significantly reduce murder in the first place. All you want to do is legislate against murder. Now, I said that way because I don't want you to think about children for a minute. We've told you what we think abortion is. Now, try that logic that you just gave with respect to an adult human being and see if that works. That's really what you can do with all of these things. All the things you're thinking right now and thinking of commenting, before you do think, if I did this with an adult human, would my argument still work?
Right. And by the way, since abortion is still, for reasons that escape me, legal in the United States, most of what we do is to try to significantly reduce abortions without having legislation. Most of the work of Christians are trying to do everything that they can. They don't just show up once a year for the Right to Life rally in DC and then stop caring about the issue of abortion. No, they're out there. Yeah, some people do it bad. Some people,
Why do I
some
keep
people
going
hold
back
up
to this?
stupid signs outside of abortion clinics and scream at women and all that. Yeah, I agree. That's not helpful, and I don't think that reduces abortions at all. But there are other people who are trying to provide whatever they can to make a pregnancy on someone who is considering abortion. Try to bring them comfort and compassion and help and assistance and do whatever they can.
And those
Not
people are
just
being
to not just
demonized.
to get the baby out of her, but to take care of her. There are Christian organizations and non-Christian organizations all over the country built up to take care of women who are pregnant. So no, that's nonsense.
Randy says, nope, consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy. Now, here's the thing.
No, it's consent to the risk of pregnancy, though.
Some of these I picked because I have something to say about them.
Say.
Okay. Consent to rock climbing is not consent to falling off of the mountain, but it's a very real possibility. When the guy, and especially
Randy,
unprotected.
what about the sex ed? Do you know how sex works? I mean, you're the one who mentioned
seriously,
sex ed.
I shouldn't have said serious. I'm sorry. But seriously, did you see the movie? I think it's called Free Solo. That may be the wrong one. It's a documentary about these rock climbers, particularly one rock climber who doesn't use ropes. There are few of these people.
Yeah.
Because they die. That's just the fact. The documentary tells it. But this guy's climbing this massive. If he falls, he will die. Some of them keep a parachute in the backpack, but many of these people die. If he falls, he likely will die. He's not consenting when he climbs the mountain, even there, to die. But he's well aware climbing this without any safety could very really kill me, right? Okay, consenting to sex is not consent to pregnancy, but it is a live possibility, even if you use protection.
It is a consent to the possibility of it. So
do you see how... I'm sorry, I'm not trying to chest thump here, but I think this is such a wicked issue. I don't mind saying it. Do you see how easy it is to respond to this sort of thing?
Yeah. I mean, if you like murdering innocent people, just say so. Just say so.
What?
If you're one of those people, if you're pro-choice or what, just say, I'm cool with torturing and murdering innocent human beings.
Hey,
just
BJ.
Say you're cool with it. Just say it. Just say I'm cool with torturing and murdering innocent human beings. Just say that. You can't. And the cognitive dissonance just sets in. But
yet the atheists still have a problem with even the notion of annihilationism. I don't know. I'm seeing I'm not seeing too many more questions. We've exhausted everyone.
I don't know. It's just, see, once you get all of the window dressing out of the way, what we're talking about, and this is why I oppose abortion, because it is murdering innocent human beings. And nobody has shown me any compelling evidence that it is not murdering innocent human beings. So you can throw out every appeal to pity that you want to, and it's because that's just a distraction. It's all red herrings. Let's get to the root issue. Is murdering innocent human beings morally acceptable or not?
To have a baby that you can't take care of is less moral than deciding to end that pregnancy. Well, ask the children in impoverished situations if they would rather be dead. Most of them will tell you no.
Is less moral than murdering an innocent human being.
Right.
It is more moral he thinks that it is more moral to murder an innocent human being than to have a human being.
Danny's here. He's I think atheist, maybe agnostic, but he says some of the worst arguments I've ever seen come from the pro-choice crowd. Thanks, Danny.
Yeah. I mean, not all atheists are pro-choice.
Right. There is a secular pro-life thing.
Yeah.
And I actually commented, this was pretty cool. I did a video a long time ago that was a response to the debate between two atheists, a pro-life atheist and pro-choice atheist, on this issue. But before I did that, I showed an atheist girl who I don't know if she had an abortion or she ended up not having an abortion. Whatever happened, she was in there giving her testimony. I put that in the video. She reached out to me, and I think, I could be wrong, I think she's actually now a Christian too. But even if she's not a Christian, she's hardcore pro-life, and she was an atheist and hardcore pro-life.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be. Abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. Remember that?
Yeah.
And now it's just willy-nilly. I mean,
but why
the
would
facade's
it even
off. So just since the facade's off anyway, it's no longer safe, legal, and rare. It's just get an abortion because you have the right to whenever you feel like it. Just say you're cool with murdering innocent human beings. Get the whole thing off. Just it's ridiculous.
Punchbowl Haircut asks a question that we should have already handled. Usually when we talk about abortion, we do. What would you say to someone who is listening to this, has had an abortion, and is feeling a great deal of guilt and shame over it? Now, the thing is, many times a young woman who goes to have an abortion is not in the know about what is actually going on. And the culture has certainly informed her, as well as, and I mean, when I say culture, I mean news, entertainment, what we call news now, entertainment, and everything else, has enforced this. So I don't hold her to the same level as I do someone who does understand what they're doing. And I really hold the doctors definitely responsible, because I think they do understand. Well, I've already said what I think about that.
Yeah.
But yes, if you're a person out there who has had an abortion and you hear how straightforwardly we're discussing this, please understand that whether you were entirely aware of what you were doing or not, the truth is God loves you. God loved that child, but God loves you. And the great hope you have of seeing that child again one day is by trusting Christ and entering his kingdom, where that child already is, in my opinion.
Yeah. So anyone of the, you know, if you've had an abortion, you didn't break any laws in this country, right? And you did, you know, everything within the bounds of the law. Okay. So if you've come to have the shame and regret over it later, the reason why you have that is because it is morally reprehensible. But like you said, there is forgiveness and grace in Christianity. And I don't think that you can have the forgiveness and grace and restoration and get that guilt expunged from your life through Christ, or you can get it expunged from the people who made you think it was acceptable to do what you have the shame and guilt for in the first place, by becoming indifferent to it. So I think that the beauty of the Christian faith and the beauty of the forgiveness of the cross is you're not the worst. If you've had an abortion, you're not the worst person. You're not the worst sinner that Christ has forgiven. Right? You're not. You didn't commit the worst sin.
Right.
That Christ shed his blood for. So you don't have to live with that for the rest of it. And that's the power of the gospel and the power of the blood of Jesus.
He takes your
wash
shame.
that away.
He takes your shame. He takes your guilt.
Yeah.
And there is freedom from this in Christ.
Yeah.
And there are many people. There's a community now of women who have had abortions who now speak out against abortion. And perhaps that's something to consider. Let's see.
A super chat.
Trinity Radio. Yeah, I'm an atheist, and I'm way more sympathetic to pro-life sentiment than otherwise. Well, that's good to hear. And I think our regular here, Kevin O'Connor, says, I'm an atheist and I'm not really pro-choice. I'd like that to be firmer, but I appreciate it. Marv Alice says here, I grew up poor, very little luxuries, no vacations. My mother was abusive and I was in a cult. I'm so sorry, Marv Alice.
Yeah.
Still would choose to be born every time.
Wow. Amen.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like a cliche from our side. Same from Ms. Mutola. Hey, I was born in some kind of poverty, but I'm not poor anymore. I'm glad my mom kept me despite having had 7 kids already and not looking for another. And at this point, I should say, many of our listeners know this, but some people think I can't talk about abortion because I'm a man, which is absurd. Can I talk about it as someone whose mother was recommended to have an abortion? Because her doctor told her that she should have an abortion because my father has a rare genetic blood disease that gets worse with each generation. And if I was born, the doctor said I probably wouldn't live to be 5 years old. My parents went to a different doctor because that wasn't even on the table. But they got churches praying over this, and I realized that you atheists might not see anything in this, but they got whole churches praying that I would be born without my father's blood disease. I was born without my father's blood disease. My daughters don't have my father's blood disease. So as a person who very easily could have been aborted if I didn't have such wonderful parents in that situation, can I talk about it? I'd like to think I can. Preach it, Punchbowl Haircut says. All right, what else do we have here?
Yeah, I don't get that because we're talking about, again, I don't understand that you can't talk about it because you're not whatever. Okay, no, I've never accepted that premise on anything. You can have to say about it. Like, you can't talk about certain things because you're a man, or you can't talk about that because
It's
you're black
similar
or
to the
white or
critical
whatever.
race
You
thing,
know,
yeah.
you can talk about whatever you want to for whatever reason you want to. But again, I don't have to. The principle, is it okay? Is it morally acceptable to murder innocent human beings?
Well, Brando asked the question.
That's not a topic that has anything to do with whether or not you're male or female. Males and females can debate the question.
Or religious or not, frankly.
Or religious or not. Yeah. Has nothing to do with religion or gender. Or sex. Is it morally acceptable to murder innocent human beings or not? And that's, you know.
How is abortion not legally considered murder? It's, by all scientific standard, the definition of murder, the premeditated taking of a human life.
Yeah, exactly. I'm wondering the same thing. But there's an interesting video from How to Be Christian from, I don't know, a couple years ago, where he goes over. All his videos on abortion are outstanding. He doesn't even argue from a religious perspective either in a lot of those videos, but he goes through a lot of information that I found useful but have since forgotten. But I do want to plug those videos because I remember while watching them, I thought that they were great. So it's How to Be Christian, the Catholic guy who's kind of funny, picks on James White every now and then. Go watch his, just How to Be Christian, abortion, and you get all kinds of
and
great
everybody's
content.
pushing Mike Winger's video from last week, which was pretty good. He talked about how he has a bumper sticker that says former former fetus or former embryo on board.
And then he got a letter from
you watched some of that?
No, I read the okay. I haven't got to it yet. I'm still trying to watch videos that have been released 3 weeks ago. So.
Mars Squeeze says, my cousin had Down syndrome and my aunt was thinking about aborting him, but she didn't, and now my cousin is an architect. God bless him. Amen.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, though, that annoys me. I'm going to tell you this that annoys me from pro-life people is we'll make these billboards and these bumper stickers that say, well, you may have just aborted the person who was going to cure AIDS or whatever, or cancer. I don't like that because it indicates that we should, or they should, put more value on someone who is going to make a worldwide major celebrity level contribution to the world. When in my mind, the child born with Down syndrome that doesn't become an architect, that lives with his parents, and then whoever takes care of him after that, that is still a valuable life that God loves.
In the image of God. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, let's not put value on what they may have done. Let's put value on where the value lies, which is the Imago Dei. So yeah, and I'm not even a fan of the people who stand outside of abortion clinics and spew hateful rhetoric to I mean, technically, do I sound much different when I say abortion is murder? Probably not, but I'm not outside of a clinic yelling at a woman, calling her a baby killer either, because I don't think that that's helpful. What I'm talking about is the issue of abortion within the broader context of the underlying principle of whether or not it is okay to murder innocent human beings. So, I'm not saying that we should be awful towards women walking into a clinic, though some people think that strategy is, acceptable. I don't find it particularly helpful. I've never even marched in a pro right to life rally. Activism is just not something that I spend a lot of time doing. But if you want to talk about the issue of murdering innocent human life that's unborn, I'm happy to talk about that without all of the red herrings of this circumstance, that circumstance, all of that, because you need to be able to talk about the fundamental principle behind something and talk about it, without having to get off into the weeds with red herrings. So there's a lot of things that I think about it that we don't say or talk about. The glory, we didn't mention in talking about the forgiveness that's in Christ. We don't mention that you will be reunited according to our theology on that. You will be reunited in heaven if you're a Christian with your aborted child that's in the hands of God right now. So all sorts of things that,
and they'll love you when you're there. It's not going to be a,
right.
Okay, pal, now it's time to,
get them. Yeah. No, I think it goes back to what the question is. What about the person who has the shame and guilt of having an abortion? right? You've already had that. And then that's already dealt with in Christ, so that's done. So there's no point reliving that in heaven. So.
See you, Randy. Thanks for showing up. Hope we weren't too hard on you. Well, at this point, I think it's time to close it down. But guess what?
Darren P. Plot. I can't see. There is now no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus. Romans 8. Go put that up on the thing.
I don't know where it is.
Oh.
But I know where this is, and it'll be the last one from Slam RN. For Prime, have you actually ever seen people outside an abortion clinic yelling and screaming? Maybe on TV, but that would be the rare case. Usually they just pray.
Well, but I mean, I have seen it. You know, I have seen it. So maybe it's because I have seen it on TV. But if it happens once, I don't think it's productive. But if they're out there praying, that's great too. Or you know, being kind.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take 10 minutes, and then we're going to run over to the Trinity Radio, Trinitarians Patreon only Facebook group. In the description for this video, there are 2 links that tell you how to get there. One is to go over to Patreon and become a member, and then come back to the video. And the second link is to take you to the Facebook page. And I will approve you if you do it now. So I hope you'll do that. With that, guess what you get? Right now, there are 2 lectures from a course that has many more lectures on the resurrection of Jesus, taught by Dr. Jonathan Pritchett.
Times 2, actually. Is the way I looked in that video.
Yeah, he's much big. You want to see Fat Pritchett, go there. And then the other thing is there's also a series from me that's ongoing right now on doing evangelism online, or doing apologetics online, and how that works. But there are also courses available for patrons on major world religions, the problem of evil, cults, I think. What else? Philosophy of religion, all kind of stuff. History of apologetics, which is really history of philosophy. So I hope you'll go over there and check us out, and I'll see you there in just 10 minutes. Let's say, what time is it now? 2:45, let's say. So let's just say 3 o'clock. We'll see you there. But let's get the outro music going.
Who's going to see us when Winger starts at 3? Well, our patrons might.
You'll have to make your decisions.
Even our patrons like Winger.
It'll all be okay. We'll see you next time on Trinity Radio. Sorry you didn't get it there, honestly. Atheist, you are a privilege to have on this show, and I hope you keep coming back for many years, as well as everybody else.